Uh, Hi, good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you all to the Camp HSS on my behalf and on behalf of the Humanities and Social Science IIT Gandhinagar. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Jason Manjali. I am a professor of philosophy and cognitive science at IIT Gandhinagar. Um, I am the organizer of this program. Um, I'm sure this weekend is going to be very exciting with a lot of fun, with new ideas, concepts, facts, and certain things that we have, taken for granted for a long time. To give you a summary of the participants, we received more than 4,200 registrations. Um, uh, we have participants from some of the neighboring countries. We have almost 500 schools across India representing this camp. We also have students from all over the country, almost all the states across the country. And this is the very encouraging and exciting moment for IIT Gandhinagar and for us who is especially working in the domain of humanities and social science. We are very excited to see that a lot of students are really interested in these topics. As you know, we are all going through very difficult time. We are fighting an unprecedented pandemic. And along with the challenges, we also get a lot of opportunities along with the challenges. This is one of the opportunity that we have right now, that we use this opportunity to reach out to you all, which would have been very difficult if 4,000 students have to come to campus at IIT Gandhinagar. It would have been very difficult for us to do this camp, and I think this has been a wonderful opportunity to reach out to you all. We have lined up very impressive speakers and topics, especially on origin of thinking. We have Fred Coolidge from University of Colorado speaking immediately after the inauguration. Tomorrow morning, we have the first session on human decision making by Dr. Sumitawa Mukherjee, who is an assistant professor at IIT Delhi. We have a session followed by that on gender and body by Leah Matthew, who is an assistant professor at Ahmedabad University. Then Creative You by Professor Sharmila Lahiri, and Prosperity, Poverty and Inequality by Professor Shyam Sundar from Yale University. He has joined us today as well. We have on August 1st, we have a session on War and Peace by Atul Singh, who is the editor-in-chief of Fair Observer, and a session on Protecting the Planet by Ambika Iyadure, and a session by me on argumentation. What we plan to achieve by this camp is to kind of generate some curiosity within you about certain topics in humanities and social sciences, and show you how these topics are connected with your everyday life and how it is impactful on various domains like technology, medicine, science, and engineering, and all domains of human knowledge. So today we have some of my colleagues with us. We also have Professor Shyam Sundar from Yale University, and Professor Sudhir Jain, who is the director of IIT Gandhinagar, joining us. I request Professor Ambika to speak few words.
Hello everyone. Warm welcome to all of you to the Camp HSS. I'm really very excited and very glad to welcome all of you. And I hear from Jason that there are thousands of students who registered, and you are many of you actually, not few, who are able to join us. And most of you are from India, but I'm also excited that there are students from outside India who are joining us. So a warm welcome. And I'm a faculty in Humanities and Social Sciences. And one of the things we want to spread through Camp HSS is the idea of crossing your own favorite subjects. All of your favorite subjects. Some subjects you may be finding it boring, some subject you may be finding exciting. But what is something we are trying to achieve in this camp is to how do we learn from multiple subjects? Some subjects that we have chosen for you is something which you will not normally get to learn in your day-to-day classrooms. For example, gender, or for example, learning about war and peace, or about how to be curious. So the camp is designed for you a very interesting set of sessions which we have planned out. And I will be actually teaching on Sunday morning on environment. And I'm stressing on this idea of how do we go beyond and reach out to multiple subjects. And that is something we are interested to achieve. And also in an engineering institute, many of you must be curious, what are we social scientists doing in engineering institute? And as you know that social sciences is a very important part of our life. Whether you're interested in mathematics, physics, chemistry, and social sciences is something which will help you make sense of what you're doing. For example, whether it's technology, medicine, health, all of them are connected together through social sciences. And from my own point of view, I studied sciences and then I moved to social sciences. So one of the things you can do through Camp HSS is to be curious and keep your minds open and try to learn as much as possible from multiple subjects, multiple disciplines, and find something you're comfortable with. Of course, you have to really read your classes and school subjects, but is there something that you want to do beyond that? Something you're really passionate about, really curious about? This camp would help you explore that, help you find your maybe subjects that you're passionate with, but you didn't get an opportunity to learn. And a wonderful set of lectures in the next 2 days, both faculties from IIT Gandhinagar and also from our colleagues outside Gandhinagar. And I want you to be participate in a full-fledged manner, interact with us, ask questions, and try to become the champions, or and try to become experts in many things, and try to learn from multiple subjects. And we are here to help you out. And I will see you on Sunday morning to talk about protecting the planet. And thank you so much, and a very warm welcome to all of you, and have fun. Bye-bye. Jason, back to you.
Thank you, Ambika. Now I request Professor Sharmida Lahiri, who is an assistant professor in literature at IIT Gandhinagar, to speak few words.
Okay, thank you, Jason. I hope I'm audible. Good evening, everyone. And it's a sheer pleasure to welcome you, so many brilliant young minds across the country. Some of you are from outside the country, to Camp HSS. We are just absolutely thrilled at the very fact that we get to interact with so many bright people who are the future of the country, of the world in the next few days. We hope that through Camp HSS, we'll be able to open up new doors of thinking for you, newer avenues, maybe make you see things that you have not seen in a particular light before, and make you have lots and lots of fun. For me, honestly, whenever I interact with students, it's always a two-way process of enriching. I believe that if I am able to give you something, you give me something back as well. In fact, I can tell you something, an experience that even if it's a text, say, I'm a literature person, so even if it's a text that I have been reading in school, in college, during my PhD, when I discuss it with students, maybe it's a BTech student, but they will always bring some new angle to it, which will make me realize, oh, I never thought about that. And yet I read about this, wrote about this so many times. So what you can bring to us, the way you enrich us, is absolutely amazing. And I also say that as teachers, as professors, we try to make you future ready, but you make people like me present ready, because this is a very, very changing world. With this new normal, we can see how many challenges we are facing and also how many opportunities are suddenly presenting themselves before us. And who but you can update someone like me, someone from a generation before you, on these new things? So I look forward to having each one of you interact with me and have fun tomorrow in my session, Creative You. What that is about? Well, let the curiosity grow and we'll find out what that is about. And again, I'm going to say, come. You might be thinking, why are all these professors constantly saying, have fun? Because as you know, professors now, we too have been students, and we have possibly sat in more classes than you have yet. And one of the things we have realized looking back, that the things that stay with us, that we remember so much, are the things that were not force-fed to us, but things which we enjoyed doing, which intrigued us, which aroused our curiosity. And that's why we are constantly saying, have fun, have fun, have fun. So let's have lots of fun with Camp HSS. And as they say before a flight takes off, enjoy your journey with us for the next 3 days. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening. Over to you, Jason.
Thank you so much, Sharmita, for your wonderful message. I now request Professor Shyam Sundar, who is a professor of economics and management at University of Yale, to speak few words. Professor Shyam.
Well, Jason, and thank you, everybody at IIT Gandhinagar to this moment. Thank you, Jason, and thank you, everybody, at IIT Gandhinagar for organizing Camp Humanities and Social Sciences. And I'm delighted to be a part of this. But most exciting part of this is, of course, the chance to speak to you, the children from from India and maybe some other countries. This format will not allow us a great deal of interaction, though we would try to have some interaction in my session tomorrow on prosperity, poverty, and inequality. The purpose of my session, and of course, the rest of the Camp HSS, is to get you to think about things that you may not have thought about. We all live lives of physical lives of eating, drinking, and going about our daily lives, going to school, reading books, going to work when you're adults, and so on, eating food, playing games, etc. But in addition to physical lives, we also live a life of the mind, life of thinking, life of ideas. And the purpose of this Camp HSS is to introduce you to certain ideas that some of you may or may not have been exposed to, because life of the mind opens up new vistas for your life. And there's a very interesting interaction that takes place between our physical lives and life of the mind. And that's what I think Professor Lahiri was talking about, what are these professors talking about having fun? Once you get into the life of the mind and become engaged with ideas, it is actually a great deal of fun. And I look forward to speaking with you and talking with you and getting your ideas in our session tomorrow. Thank you so much and good luck. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Professor Sham, for sharing your thoughts. Now I request Professor Jain to speak few words. Professor Jain is a renowned a scholar of earthquake engineering, and he is a visionary academic administrator. He was conferred Padma Shri in 2020 for his visionary leadership, academic leadership. He is very passionate, though he is an engineer, he is extremely passionate about humanities and social science and advocates its relevance and importance on the impact of education. Over to you, Professor Jain.
Thank you, Jason. Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, delighted to be able to speak to you today in Camp HSS. I'm really very, very happy that our colleagues and friends are organizing this big event where more than 4,000 students from schools have registered. And these 4,000 students are there because they're interested. They are not there because somebody is forcing them to be there, which is very interesting, which is very, very exciting. All of you have heard perhaps about the IIT, Indian Institute of Technology, and perhaps you have the impression that we are a technology institute, we are a engineering institute, and we are for the college students, we are for the students who have finished their 12th class, who want to do their degree, bachelor's, master's, doctorate. But actually we are much more. We are very much interested also in humanities and social sciences, because we cannot produce good engineers if they don't learn enough humanities and social sciences. Our engineers will not be successful in solving the society's problems if they don't understand the society. Therefore, we are also very much interested in humanities and social sciences. We are also very much interested in schools, because schools provide us the students that come to us to do degree. In fact, some of you might know, we also have a Center for Creative Learning, which is focused on teaching of science, math, etc., in schools. So we are interested in humanities and social sciences. We are interested in schools. And my colleagues, under the leadership of Professor Jason, came up with this fantastic idea of doing Camp HSS for school children and talk to them about various aspects of humanities and social sciences. They put together a fantastic program where very eminent colleagues, both inside the IIT Gandhinagar and outside IIT Gandhinagar, will share their thoughts with you and engage with you and give you a sense of some of the areas of humanities and social sciences. This is very important for school children, because quite often the school children choose their career, choose their college, choose their degree based on what they hear from their neighbors, based on what their parents tell them, based on their impression where they can make more money. But that is not always a very smart thing to do. If you want to be happy in life, I hope we all want to be happy in life. What is the point in not being happy in life? What is the point in being unhappy in life? We get only one life to live, and we should be happy. And for that, we must do what we enjoy doing. I don't know of anybody who does whole day of work which he doesn't like and is still happy. You cannot be happy if you are doing something that you don't like. What that means is that if you like engineering, do engineering, but if you don't like engineering and you like literature, you should do literature. And that is what you also heard from Professor Sharmita Lahiri about having fun, enjoying yourselves. I think if you choose your career, if you choose your subjects based on what you like, you will be having fun all your life. You will be enjoying your life. As Professor Shyam Sundar said, humanities and social science is an extremely important area. It gives context to life. It gives you a perspective. It gives you a sense of where we are going, why we should be going, why we are doing what we are doing. And I believe that such a program should be available to every young student from time to time. I hope that my colleagues will continue to organize more such programs. And I hope many of you who are here today, who are participating in this event, will continue to be engaged by such programs and would benefit in one form or the other from such engagement. And I will therefore close by saying that I wish you all the best. I hope you will have a good experience. I hope you will learn some interesting stuff and you will gain perspective. I want this to be a very, very memorable event for you. I want some of you to say after 10 or 20 years that this Camp HSS of IIT Gandhinagar really gave you a new way of thinking, new perspective about your own future, about life generally. My best wishes to all of you. Take care. Jason, over to you.
Thank you, Professor Jain. Was a wonderful message. Before we start the first session, few housekeeping announcements. We have you can find a Q&A option in the Zoom window where you could actually write your questions. You can also raise your hand if you have any questions that you want to ask the speaker. We will try to facilitate as much as possible. If you have any questions, queries, please do not hesitate to write to us at camp.hss@iitgn.ac.in. While we are on the session, please make sure that all the queries are written not in the chat box but in the Q&A section. Professor Fred Coolidge has joined us. I would like Tarunima to introduce Professor Fred Coolidge.
Thank you, Professor Manjali. Hello, everyone. Good evening. I welcome you all to Camp HSS. My name is Tanurima Shaw, and I am an HSS student here in IIT Gandhinagar. For the very first session, we have with us Dr. Coolidge. The session is titled Origin of Thinking. So when people say think or use your brain, it is obvious that thinking starts with the brain. But where did brains come from? And how did they develop and evolve? This session is here to tell you the story of brains and their evolution. Do modern humans have the biggest brain of all animals and all our distant ancestors? The obvious answer is no. Whales and elephants have bigger brains than we do. So what about our smaller brains? What makes us smarter than all animals and our ancient ancestors? This session is here to tell you exactly that. I welcome Dr. Coolidge to Camp HSS of IIT Gandhinagar. He received his BA, MA, and PhD from the University of Florida and completed a 2-year postdoctoral fellowship in clinical neuropsychology at Shands Teaching Hospital, University of Florida. He came to UCCS in 1979. He was chair of department from 1986 to 1989 and served as the clinical director from 1981 to 1984. Dr. Coolidge is a 3-time Fulbright Fellowship Award recipient India 1987, 92, and 2005. He has received 3 teaching awards, including the Lifetime Designation, University of Colorado Presidential Teaching Scholar, and he received the UCCS Letters, Arts, and Sciences Annual Outstanding Research and Creative Works Award in 2004, and the UCCS Annual Faculty Award for Excellence in Research in 2006. In March 2015, he was appointed Senior Visiting Scholar at Oxford University, Keble College, UK. For the past 6 years, he has been a visiting professor at the IIT Gandhinagar, India, teaching courses on brain evolution and sleep and dreams. We welcome you here, Dr. Coolidge. Thank you so much for being with us. Before Dr. Coolidge begins his sessions, a few quick reminders. The activities, polls, and surveys that all the speakers do throughout their sessions are open only for the students. Other guests, we are delighted to have you here, but we encourage you not to participate in these activities. Also, I can already see a lot of questions in the Q&A box. There is also a very enthusiastic hi with a lot of eyes. Hi right back at you. But please refrain from putting questions right now. We'll open the Q&A box the moment the speaker speaks, and then we'll take questions from you and try that the speaker answers as much as possible. Also, I can see a few people have raised their hands. Please don't raise your hands, lower them now, so that later when you raise your hands, we don't get confused as to who raised them earlier and who raised them right now. Thank you so much. I hope you all enjoy and have a good time. Dr. Coolidge, the stage is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. And it says I am sharing. And that's okay. Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes, Fred.
Excellent. Okay, so this is the origins of thinking. And I'm Professor Fred Coolidge. I'm at the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, and I'm also an official guest professor, excuse me, at IIT Gandhinagar. And I also at UCCS co-direct the Center for Cognitive Archaeology. And that's a picture there of what looks out my office window at the University of Colorado. That's Pikes Peak in the background. So it's obvious that thinking begins with the brain, but what is thinking? A fancier word for thinking in the literature, in psychology especially, is cognition. So thinking and cognition are absolutely synonymous. And so what do we mean by thinking? What's its official definition? Well, there is no single accepted standard definition. Cognition or thinking obviously begins with the brain. So thinking might include using your brain and your mind to make decisions, to be aware of being alive, aware of feelings, contemplating, meditating, wondering, daydreaming, dreaming at night is part of thinking, creating things, inventing things, worrying is part of thinking, being depressed, being able to understand a joke and laugh at it. And I'll test you later on that. Calculating, assessing a situation, all of these things might be included on the umbrella of what we'd call thinking. So here's our first question. What's the difference between a brain and a mind? So I have this little curious brain here, obviously a left hemisphere and a right hemisphere. And here's all these things that the brain can do. So what's the difference between brain and mind? Now, if we go up to Q&A, do we have any answers yet? The brain, I like that. Disha, brain is an organ, but the mind isn't. Brain is part of the brain is part of the body. Mind is an energy. Actually, energies are still part of brain. John Javi, brain is a physical entity. Mind is non-tangible. The mind has no structure. Actually, there might be a structure. It's just so subtle, we don't know what it is. Through mind, we think, and brain gives us commands. Of course, those are all good answers. I like all of that. But yeah, so obviously the brain is confined by the skull, right? The brain cannot extend itself outside the skull. If it did, you just die, like from a horrible brain injury. But the mind, which is sort of a phenomenon of the brain, it's a repercussion of what the brain does. The mind, as in this little display, can do all kinds of things. You can teach, expand, discover, consider, learn, look. You can make your body right. So all the mind is sort of this, we would call it a phenotype in psychology. A phenotype means a behavioral manifestation or a structural manifestation. A phenotype you can actually see or at least measure. Okay, let's see if I can get it to advance. Okay, so let's go start with the very beginnings, because we're going to start with the very beginnings of life, because life's going to give rise eventually, simpler forms of life will eventually give rise to beings or animals or organisms that have brains. So of course, you know, maybe the history is the Big Bang, that space and dimensions came into existence about 13.3 billion years ago to 13.7 billion years ago. And everything started at that point. And at that time, after the Big Bang, these molecules, all these different types of chemicals coagulate into larger kinds of matter. And of course, the universe is full of stars and planets, which are called solar systems. And this is what the discipline of cosmology studies, the origins of the universe. And astronomy, of course, studies the things like stars and planets, the bigger things. Okay, our Earth coagulates into a cohesive whole about 4.567 billion years ago, 4.5 billion years ago, which is kind of easy to memorize, isn't it? 4.567. And there were probably no living things on Earth at that time. So I have another question for you. Was the early Earth 4.5 billion years ago, was it really hot or really cold? Krish Prasad, what was before the Big Bang? That's an interesting question, because in a way you can't answer it. If you say this is the start of something, then what's before the start, the question makes no sense. But Krish Prasad, that's a great question. What was before the Big Bang? I love it. Okay, let's look some more answers here. What do we got? Really hot, really cold, hot, 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 hot. Okay. Early Earth. This is the latest on early Earth. I know a lot of you in school learned that it was really hot. Guess what? It's a trick question. It was probably no hotter or colder than right now. From geological evidence, it says it doesn't look like it was much hotter and it doesn't look like it was much colder. However, we do know, probably because of all the carbon dioxide in the air, that the sunlight was dimmer. It might only be 70% as bright as it is now. That would make it probably a little bit cooler than the hottest times, but probably the Earth had about the same temperature. It was getting bombarded by getting warmed up by volcanoes, that's true. And it still does. And of course, meteorites and comets were hitting the surface of the Earth much like it would hit the moon. Display can do all kinds of things. You can teach, expand, discover, consider, learn, look. You can make your body right. So all the mind is sort of this, we would call it a phenotype in psychology. A phenotype means a behavioral manifestation or a structural manifestation. A phenotype you can actually see or at least measure. Okay, let's see if I can get it to advance. Okay, so let's go start with the very beginnings, because we're going to start with the very beginnings of life, because life's going to give rise eventually, simpler forms of life will eventually give rise to beings or animals or organisms that have brains. So of course, you know, maybe the history is the Big Bang, that space and dimensions came into existence about 13.3 billion years ago to 13.7 billion years ago. And everything started at that point. And at that time, after the Big Bang, these molecules, all these different types of chemicals coagulate into larger kinds of matter. And of course, the universe is full of stars and planets, which are called solar systems. And this is what the discipline of cosmology studies, the origins of the universe. And astronomy, of course, studies the things like stars and planets, the bigger things. Okay, our Earth coagulates into a cohesive whole about 4.567 billion years ago, 4.5 billion years ago, which is kind of easy to memorize, isn't it? 4.567. And there were probably no living things on Earth at that time. So I have another question for you. Was the early Earth 4.5 billion years ago, was it really hot or really cold? Krish Prasad, what was before the Big Bang? That's an interesting question, because in a way you can't answer it. If you say this is the start of something, then what's before the start? The question makes no sense. But Krish Prasad, that's a great question. What was before the Big Bang? I love it. Okay, let's look some more answers here. What do we got? Really hot, really cold, hot, 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 hot. Okay. Early Earth. This is the latest on early Earth. I know a lot of you in school learned that it was really hot. Guess what? It's a trick question. It was probably no hotter or colder than right now. From geological evidence, it says it doesn't look like it was much hotter and it doesn't look like it was much colder. However, we do know, probably because of all the carbon dioxide in the air, that the sunlight was dimmer. It might only be 70% as bright as it is now. That would make it probably a little bit cooler than the hottest times, but probably the Earth had about the same temperature. It was getting bombarded by getting warmed up by volcanoes, that's true. And it still does. And of course, meteorites and comets were hitting the surface of the earth much like it would hit the moon.